Welcome back. I have here with me Mr. Jerry Smith, who is also running for District Judge of the 24th Judicial District Court, Division H. Jerry received his Juris Doctor from LSU Law School in 2000. As owner of a private practice, Mr. Smith has represented both plaintiffs and defendants in civil suits and clients in family law matters. Jerry has been an assistant district attorney for 13 years as well. He was the Jefferson Parish felony prosecutor from 2008 to 2015 and the St. Tammany Parish career criminal and felony prosecutor from 2015 to 2019. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Jerry Smith. We are glad to have this opportunity to learn more about you and your platform, your qualifications for this judicial race.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me.
Great. So let's get right to it. We've got some questions for you. Let's start with the first one, which is we'd like you to tell us a little bit more about you, your background and experience that you believe sets you apart from your opponent as the better person to serve as judge, and what about your past suggests you will serve this community well in the future in the role of judge.
All right, an easy one. No, I think to go back to 1995, I was finishing up college and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I ended up being a witness on a criminal case in Orleans Parish. I, along with my friends, we caught somebody breaking into my friend's house while she was inside, and after that we had to go testify in court, and it was just such a fascinating experience, and I was watching what the prosecutors were doing. And at that point I said, I really want to do that. So I went to law school and got my law degree and went directly to work for the Orleans Parish DA's office. Over the next 20 years, or just about 20 years, I have worked in criminal prosecution. I've even handled some defense cases. I've worked in civil on both sides, and I've worked in family law. So I have a wide variety of experience that I think is important to have the perspective of every type of case that comes into the courtroom to kind of understand where those people are coming from. So I think that experience, I think my 13 years serving as a prosecutor, which is public service, I want to continue that public service. And I think the position of judge is very important, and it's very important to have people who are there for the right reasons. And I believe that my history of public service should show that that's my main motivation for wanting to seek this judgeship.
Okay. Question. What do you think is the most important role for a judge in this community, and how do you believe that you are qualified to fulfill such a role?
Well, there are rules for judges, and they're called the Code of Judicial Conduct. And rule number one is that an honorable and independent judiciary is indispensable to justice in our society. And independence, and what does that mean to be an independent judiciary? And it means to hear the cases that come before you and decide them on the facts that you hear and the law, with no regard of who it is who's walking into your courtroom. Everybody who walks in should be treated the same, whether they hire a particular attorney or whether they have some sort of connection to some politician. Independence is very important, and I don't have a political machine pushing me, and I believe that I am a lot more independent than my opponent, and I believe that's very important. And I think the ability of a judge to have judicial temperament, and that is to remove your own emotion from it, and just decide the case based on what's presented in court. And I know I have the ability to do that, and so that's another reason why I believe I'm the most qualified candidate.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Next question. Do you believe that all citizens have adequate access to legal help in our legal system? And if not, what do you believe can or should be done to provide wider and better access to such justice?
Well, that question, it's an easy one for me to answer because in the 13 years that I served in various district attorneys' offices, they all have some sort of system for having a duty assistant DA, and that is the assistant DA who takes calls that come in or people who walk in off the street who have a problem. And 9 times out of 10, those are not the types of issues that the assistant district attorney can help them with. So part of what you do is you try to steer them to the person who can help them. And so we've done, you end up talking a lot with the LSBA referral line, some of the pro bono outfits.
So let's start to interrupt you.
Sure.
LSBA is Louisiana
State Bar Association. I'm sorry, yes.
And that's an organization set up within I guess the Bar Association is an outfit that polices attorneys, and it is there to try and support what the attorneys do to reach out to the community. And you said other pro bono?
There are other pro bono efforts that, that somebody's problem may fall into if they don't have the money to get access. I do believe that there are a lot of things that could demystify what goes on in a courthouse and be provided in a way that the ordinary citizen can understand it and take action on it without crossing the line of the court giving legal advice, which is something that we can't do.
Okay. Next question. You mentioned a story about what sort of brought you to an interest in going to law school and being interested in being a prosecutor. What about the position of being a judge interested you and made you decide to go from taking a side as a prosecutor and a district attorney to being a judge, sort of a referee, somebody who decides cases, and obviously in Jefferson Parish, criminal or civil cases?
Well, part of that goes back to my work at the Jefferson Parish District Attorney's Office. I will say that the greatest thing I learned in that office was a very high level of ethics. And I believe that office promotes that and teaches that to all the assistants there. And when I say that, what I mean is when we had a case, if the defense attorney wasn't doing a full job or you knew that there was something they were missing that they weren't taking advantage of for their client, we found it was our obligation to present that to them and kind of act as the gatekeeper, the goaltender, so that somebody doesn't get taken advantage of because perhaps their attorney didn't know about a certain law or didn't know about a certain circumstance. So I feel like in the years that I was there, I was already performing that role of both sides. Although I was a zealous advocate for the state and trying to protect the public from dangerous criminals, you also have to protect the defendants from the system itself. And that practice over many years doing that, I think is going to be a big asset in the judgeship.
Okay. Next question. What is your vision for the future of the court? If you are privileged to serve as a judge by being elected, how do you plan on making an impact while maintaining the high standard that we hold for our courts?
Absolutely, great question. So as we remember looking back in history, when these natural disasters happen, they often change the way we operate, change the way we do things. Up until Hurricane Katrina, nobody texted. And then once Hurricane Katrina came along, everybody had to rely on text messages to communicate. We've seen that with the COVID-19 crisis, that you have had a lot more of Zoom or other video technology to use to have meetings virtually. And when I started thinking about that as it pertains to courts, what I remember is on days when I would be in court and it was a civil day, which would mean that the court was typically handling civil cases as opposed to criminal, you would walk in and see 40 attorneys in there. And you know that each one of those attorneys is billing a few $100s an hour. So I'm looking at the room, looking at how much money is really lost to waste. And there's so many things that have agreed, the parties agreed what's going to happen. And even though they know what's going to happen, they go and they wait for an hour so that they can all stand up and say what they already knew was going to happen. So I want to integrate video conferencing more with the courtroom and with consent of the parties, so that both sides, if they agree, that they know what's going to happen, then there's no need for everybody to come physically down there and do it, unless there's live testimony being taken or something like that.
And I'm glad to hear you say that. And we've heard one or two other candidates or more already bring that up. That I hope one of the good things that may come out of this pandemic, which is wreaking havoc on people's lives and even worse with some families, is some technological advances. So I'm glad to hear that that is something that interests you too, because long before the pandemic, it just seemed like such an inefficient way to run courtrooms, where you had a room full of lawyers. Now, some lawyers, they're not making money. I'm a personal injury lawyer, and I don't make money unless I'm successful at the end of the case for my client. And if I'm there 5 minutes or if I'm there 4 hours, I'm not paid an extra nickel. It's whether or not I'm successful at that hearing and ultimately successful in the case.
Sure.
But I think even judges staggering the hearing. Don't tell everybody to get there at 9 o'clock. Have some get there at 9, have some get there at 9:30, some get there at 10, 10:30, 11. If you know everybody's going to be there till lunchtime, why make everybody get there at 9? But the Zoom meetings, I love it, and I hope that if you're successful, that's something you'll be able to implement for at least some kind of hearings. But
Okay.
We still have some time, so next question. And we have time for maybe one or two more. Can you point to a moment in your career where maybe you had to make a difficult choice? Maybe something that was politically unpopular, where you had to make a tough decision that maybe was going to offend or upset somebody or a group, but you still had to make that decision that you can talk about today. Can you give us an example, maybe in the next minute, because we are starting to run short?
That happens all the time. When you're in that position and you have to, like I said, that the judiciary has to be independent, but decisions of the prosecutors also have to be made without fear of public outcry or passion for a particular cause. And so we often did have issues like that would come up. I prosecuted some very politically connected people. I prosecuted some big people in the financial community, and it wasn't popular to a lot of people, and it really didn't affect my decisions at all, because it's not important who somebody is. It's important what they did and what the appropriate punishment is. So yes, and without giving too much detail
Sure.
on a particular case, yes, it came up rather often.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. Now we have time for one more question, and it's an important one, because for those viewers out there who would like to find out more about you and your platform, how about you tell us your campaign, your ballot number, and your website address for your campaign?
Sure. My ballot number is 77, and my Facebook page is Jerry Smith for Judge, and my website is www.jerrysmithforjudge.com.
Great. I'm very grateful to you. You were able to join us here today for this filming. Thank you for answering all these questions and helping us understand a little more about you and your goals and aspirations should you be given the privilege of serving as judge. Unfortunately, however, we are out of time, and I can't ask any more questions. Thank all of you for joining us for this show, this segment. We really hope you felt like you got to know your candidates better and on a more personal level. Remember to keep updated through your local news and online resources as to the current COVID guidelines for voting at your designated ballot station and mail-in voting practices. Stay safe and get out there to vote on November the 3rd. That's all the time we have today. You can view this show and previous shows at johnredmannpoa.com. Be on the lookout for more special election episodes of John Redmann, Power of Attorney. There are many other local races happening on November 3rd. You can visit govotela.org. You can also visit johnredmannpoa.com to view this show and previous shows. My name is John Redmann, and I look forward to seeing you next time.